Chapter 4. Where may the Lord be found? Having discussed the evolution of the human being from a sensual creature to one acquiring a thirst for God, we are now faced with the question of where to find the object of our search. When we look about us, we see literally hundreds of religions and philosophies. Everyone seems to have his own idea of how to attain God realization. Certain similarities, however, appear in most of these philosophies. They show evidence of 1. Rituals and ceremonies, 2. Holy places of pilgrimage, 3. Temples and houses of worship, 4. Holidays and festivals, 5. Fasts and penances, 6. Formalized prayers or recitations, 7. Identifying dress or symbols, 8. A priestly or ministerial class. Most religious philosophies incorporate practically all of these characteristics. Naturally, there are thousands of different approaches to God resulting from the interplay of these characteristics. The problem we face when confronted with all of these philosophies is how to determine which one, or ones, contains the essence of truth. For example, Muslims insist we must make at least one pilgrimage to Mecca during our lifetime, while the Sikhs feel strongly about Amritsar as a necessary place to visit. Should we believe that the gracious Lord prefers Mecca over Amritsar, or vice versa? Or, in the matter of dress, does he prefer those who cover their heads to enter a holy place, or those who go bareheaded? Each custom seems to originate from the same feeling of respect for the Lord. Christians would think it sacrilegious to enter a church barefooted, while Hindus and Muslims feel it a necessity. Some religions say Friday is a day holy to the Lord, while others claim it is a sin to work on Saturday, or Sunday, or Monday, and so on. It seems as though one is constantly sinning against one religion or another the moment one adopts any particular custom. So how is one to select a philosophy to follow in such a situation? To complicate matters still more, it would not be possible for us to intelligently investigate all the religions of the world in our lifetime. There are simply too many religions, each having a number of subdivisions, and we could easily spend our entire lifetime researching the various alternatives. How many thousands of sincere seekers have suffered untold deprivations, such as fasts, sitting in hot or cold water, or standing in one place for hours on end, allowing disease to ravage their bodies, in the belief that it would bring them nearer to God. These austerities, penances, pilgrimages, rituals, and the like may have purified their thoughts somewhat, or lulled them into a feeling of attainment. But where is the desired merging with God? The prophet Isaiah warned, "To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me, saith the Lord? I delight not in the blood of bullocks, or of lambs, or of he-goats. When ye come to appear before me, who hath required this at your hand, to tread my courts? Bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons and Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies, I cannot away with. It is iniquity, even the solemn meeting. Your new moons and your appointed feasts, my soul hateth. They are a trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them. And when ye spread forth your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you. Yea, when ye make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood." Isaiah 1:11-15. The Buddha, in his search for enlightenment, tried all the traditional Hindu and yogic austerities and rituals, and concluded they were worthless. He outdid even the best of the yogis. While he gained certain supernatural powers, he did not attain God realization, and therefore denounced traditional Hinduism and yoga. In later years, after his death, The Hindus looked upon him as a reformer and claimed him as a Hindu at heart. Buddha told his disciples, "The Tathagata, perfect one, does not seek salvation in austerities, but neither does he for that reason indulge in the worldly pleasures nor live in abundance. The self-indulgent man is a slave to his passions, and pleasure-seeking is degrading and vulgar. But to satisfy the necessities of life is not evil. To keep the body in good health is a duty, for otherwise we shall not be able to trim the lamp of wisdom and keep our minds strong and clear." And Guru Arjan Dev, the fifth Sikh Guru, says, "In countless ways did I endeavor to meet the Lord. I read the scriptures and studied the Vedas. The yogic practices, including Kundalini, or serpent power, these too did I perform. Still the 5 foes I could not cast out. On the contrary, vanity increased by leaps and bounds and seized upon the intellect. No, these are not the roads, my dear friend, that lead Godwards. Believe me, innumerable such paths have I traversed in vain." Footnote: 5 foes: lust, anger, greed, attachment, ego. End footnote. Why should the Lord require degradation or destruction of the human body in which He Himself resides? Herein lies a mystic secret, for all saints and masters have universally proclaimed, the Lord, who is the supreme object of our search, is not to be found anywhere outside. He must be realized within the human frame. Clearly, the Lord would not wish us to destroy His very abode. In 1 Corinthians 3:16-17, St. Paul says, "Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are." This is a simple truth, yet perhaps 1 man in a million makes his actual search for God within. We prefer to run to a man-made structure and offer an external brand of worship to a God who dwells within a temple of stone. Mystics tell us that the kingdom of God is within each and every one of us, and that the real church, temple, mosque, synagogue, or gurudwara is the human form. External worship, they say, is futile. In 2 Corinthians 6:16, St. Paul continues, "And what agreement hath the temple of God with idols? For ye are the temple of the living God. As God had said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people." Similarly, while explaining a verse by Guru Amar Das, the 3rd Sikh Guru, Maharaj Charan Singh says, "The Lord who has given life to the entire creation, who is the supreme giver, who nurtures and sustains everyone, resides within the human frame." Kabir, the 15th century weaver saint of Benares, says, "As in the sesamum seed there is oil, and the spark of fire is in the flint, in the same way does your beloved in your own body reside. Awaken him if you can. As the pupil is in the eye, so is the Creator in the body. The fool knows not this secret and runs about the world outside. Searching for him in vain, he whom you have tried to find in the 4 corners of the earth. He is within. You fail to see him because he lives behind the veil of illusion." And Guru Arjan Dev tells us, "A great wonder is this. In the same house live the two, the soul and her Lord, ever in each other's company. And yet, how strange, they never speak, the one to the other." If someone were to throw a stone through the window of our church or temple, we might fly after him in a rage and punish him severely, as befits a temple desecrator. But daily we ravage the real temple of God, the human body, by all manner of thoughts, words, and actions. We pollute this body with unspeakable poisons in the guise of food and think nothing of ingesting harmful substances and drugs, if it will bring us some momentary exhilaration. We search for the mansion of the Most High Lord throughout the physical universe, yet fail to look to his true abode within each and every one of us. We foolishly believe that mystics and saints speak only figuratively when they tell us that the Lord is to be found within. We fail to grasp the literal meaning of their words. Bulle Shah, a Punjabi Muslim mystic of the 18th century, proclaims, "The Lord does not reside in mosques, nor is the Kaaba his abode. The Quran and other scriptures do not have him, nor is he to be found in saying prayers. Pilgrimages did not bring me any nearer to him, and I bore the travail of the journey for nothing." But when Bulle found his preceptor, all attachments vanished at the Guru's magic touch. And further, I read the scriptures, both the Vedas and the Quran, and sick I was of reading them, time and again. I knelt in prayer until my knees were near worn out with kneeling. All this done in vain. For God lives not in Mecca, no, nor in centers of pilgrimage. Whoever realized him did so within himself. Mysticism teaches that the human form is a microcosm wherein this entire macrocosm may be found. The human form contains the soul, a drop of that divine ocean which is God. Each drop has a potential to merge into the ocean. Each man, therefore, has within himself the potential to return to the Lord. Guru Amar Das says, "In the cave of the body there are indescribable treasures." Maharaj Charan Singh explains in relation to this verse that the greatest treasure is the Supreme Lord, who himself resides within us. The question naturally arises, if the Lord is within every one of us, why is it that we cannot see him? No doubt, many of us accept the teachings of the saints with respect to God's presence within. But we feel quite frustrated when all our efforts to uncover him prove fruitless. The key to this mystery is given in the Gospel according to St. Matthew 6:22-23, where Christ says, "The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness?" Corroboration can be given from the writings of scores of other saints and mystics, but the Bible is generally more familiar to Western seekers, which accounts for its frequent mention throughout this book. Christ tells us that the inner light is contained in the eye, that is, the single eye, or third eye, spoken of by all saints. This is a point about midway between and slightly above the two eyes. It is a subtle spiritual point and cannot be found in the physical body. It is at this subtle point that the mind and soul are knotted together, and at this same point we find the seat of consciousness in the waking state. From this point downward lies a part of creation we term the physical world. It is perceived by and through the physical senses, all of which are located in the physical material frame of man. Whenever our consciousness operates below the eye center, we are functioning in this physical world. And, similarly, once we learn how to collect our scattered consciousness and bring it to the eye center, we rise above the physical plane of reality and enter the next region, the astral world, which is a vibrational plane of consciousness directly above this physical world. Both worlds exist simultaneously, but the astral can only be entered when one has risen above the sensory outlets, collected the consciousness at the eye center, and gone within. In the quotation, Christ tells us that if we can make our eye single, that is, vacate our consciousness from the body and place it within at the eye center, then we will see the splendor which lies within, and we shall bask in that inner light. When we close our eyes, however, we find nothing but darkness within. Christ tells us that this is because we have evil within us, which serves as a barrier between the soul and the Lord. And what is that evil? All the downward, that is, worldly, tendencies of our mind, along with the karmas, actions, which we perform in this world, veil our consciousness so that the light within is not experienced. Every mystic has spoken of the mind as the essential barrier between man and God. This mind, originally given to man so that he might function in this physical world, has become inflated with self-importance and has gained the upper hand over the soul. Now the soul must follow wherever the mind may lead. The true and original relationship between soul and mind was that of master and servant. The soul, in its descent from higher regions of consciousness into the gross physical creation, took on mind as a dutiful servant. Mind is necessary to function in this world, much as a diving suit is needed by a deep-sea diver. The mind, even when functioning as a servant, is an encumbrance or covering on the soul in the same way that the diver is hampered by the clumsy suit that he must wear to function in the alien world of the sea. The mind obtains its impressions of the physical world through the gross senses. Further, the senses themselves are slaves to the objects of the world. Thus, over a period of time, the mind has grown to depend upon the senses, ultimately becoming a slave to them. Fond of pleasure, the mind began to run to the world of the senses in an attempt to find satisfaction. Since soul is linked to mind, the soul has had to accompany the mind in its endless odyssey in this creation. Having lost the memory of its origin in higher regions of consciousness, the mind runs about this world, desperately trying to find happiness by means of the sensual pleasures. The poor suffering mind does not realize that it is not of this gross physical creation, and that only by going into the region of universal mind, or universal consciousness, can it ever find peace. So long as mind wanders in this physical creation, the soul too will be in agonizing pain, for the soul can never be free until it separates from mind, and this can occur only when mind is persuaded to go within and return to its own level of consciousness. Just as a diver may weary of the undersea sport, but cannot abandon the diving suit until he surfaces, so too the soul cannot abandon the mind on this plane of consciousness. Sant Das, a mystic poet of the 18th century, who lived in Rajasthan and Delhi, says, "How is it possible in this disordered world to steep oneself in contemplation of the Lord? Here mind is now a slave to all the senses, and soul is no more than a handmaid who obeys the orders of her Lord, the mind." We have been sojourning in this creation since the world was created, and we have completely forgotten our divine home with the Father. We have come to think of ourselves as finite and perishable beings. As long as we cling to the notion that we are mind and body, as opposed to soul, we can never go back to the Father, who is the creator of each and every one of us, even though he resides within us at this very moment. Christ draws the conclusion that we do not realize how much of a loss we suffer by being deprived of that inner light. As long as we are entangled in the world of mind and Maya, illusion, and slavishly run after the sensual pleasures, we can never realize the Lord. Soul, having separated from the divine ocean, also carries all the qualities of the Lord, although in microcosm. In short, soul is also Sat Chit Anand. When we come to realize the soul within, we have attained the state known as self-realization. That is, we have come to know who, in fact, we are. We find we are not the physical body, the astral body, the causal body, or the universal mind, but we are the soul which has separated from the Father. Having realized this, which must be experienced, not intellectualized, the soul has to go on to the one remaining step, God realization. The drop, long separated from the ocean, merges back into the ocean of God and becomes God. Duality ceases, and there is unity and cessation of even the subtlest illusion. This state is beyond any description, and even the saints say it cannot be described in words. Swamiji Maharaj says, "From one step to another, the soul beholds strange things which cannot be described in human language. Every region and everything is utterly beyond words. What beauty and glory! How can I describe them? There is nothing here to convey the idea. I am helpless." In bliss, Swamiji exclaims, "Love plays the supreme part. It is all love." Perhaps this is what St. Paul meant when he said in 1 Corinthians 2:9, "But as it is written, eye had not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him." And how is this wonder accomplished? Here, the answer is equally simple. We must reverse the process. Just as we have become enmeshed in the mind and senses, similarly, we must learn to withdraw our attention to its place of origin, the eye center, and hold it firmly within, thereby weaning it away from the pleasures and attractions of the world. This process is termed meditation. It involves daily practice under the guidance of a perfect living master, so that gradually the attention is trained to come to rest within, at the eye center. It is to be expected that few persons will be interested in what appears to be a tedious, daily discipline involving concentration and meditation. But this is the one true way in which we can worship the Father. All other methods are outwardly directed and produce limited results. Only those persons marked for spiritual progress will respond to the inner teachings. St. Paul in Romans 11:8 says, "According as it is written, God hath given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear unto this day." St. Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 2:14 that only through the Spirit can one know the Father. "But the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned." In the Gospel of St. John 4:23-24, Christ gives us a magnificent example of how to worship the Father. That is, he tells us the mystic secret of meditation. "But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth." Christ explains that those who are truly worshiping the Father realize that he is a pure spiritual entity. As such, it is not possible to have access to him unless the worshipper can enter the region of pure spirituality. The Father, Christ tells us, is anxious to have such worshippers, for this is the only form of devotion which is acceptable to the Lord. Naturally, a special technique is required and appropriate instructions imparted. Further, the progress must be supervised by one who has made the journey all the way back to the Lord. This is why we need a living adept. In order to see that light within and to merge into the bliss of higher consciousness, we must withdraw our attention from the body and place it on higher centers, beginning with the eye center, which is the lowest point at which we can withdraw our attention from the entire body. Since the eye center is the normal seat of our consciousness when we are awake, it would be foolish to meditate on a center, or chakra, lower than this point, for this would have the effect of lowering our attention and putting it into closer association with the physical creation, rather than raising it higher. The effect of meditating on lower centers is to bind us more tightly to this physical creation, albeit that we gain certain supernatural powers. When we have succeeded in bringing these scattered rays of attention to the eye center, we will then be able to penetrate into the astral regions. Progressively, we will enter still higher regions in the actual company of our spiritual master, coming at last to the region of universal mind. At the top of this inner region, the mind will become detached from its association with soul, and soul will finally be free to realize its divine heritage. Soul will see itself shining with the brilliance of 12 of our suns and realize its true nature. This is self-realization, for only by shedding the covering of the body and the mind can we realize that we are, in fact, the soul. It is not an easy process. For ages, we have been binding ourselves to this physical creation. Our mind is accustomed to having its own way and pursuing the worldly delights. Detachment from the creation is not an easy process, and if it is accomplished too quickly, damage can result. The mind seldom finds pleasure in the early stages of meditation, and we often find ourselves battling the mind with our backs to the wall. The mind will cease resisting only when it tastes the inner delights, that is, finds a superior form of pleasure. But for most of us, a good deal of meditation is a prerequisite to such an experience. Mind conceives of meditation as a kind of suicide, realizing only that it is being asked to leave this world with vague promises of eventually dwelling in one far more satisfying. The mind would prefer indulgence in the pleasures of this world, rather than placing its faith in some higher form of consciousness. If we analyze this point of view, we will see that we are already familiar with 3 levels of consciousness. So why not accept the fact that there may be more than 3? We are aware of waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep. Everyone has experienced each of these states. When we undergo dreamless sleep, we have no recollection of the state. And if questioned, we can only remember falling asleep and then waking up. The interim is lost to us. It is the lowest state of consciousness with which we are familiar, and it is devoid of all memory. In the next level of dreaming while asleep, we find we can experience all the pleasures of the waking state. We can take meals, go on long journeys, meet and converse with people, and even have love affairs complete with appropriate bodily responses. When we wake up, we realize that it was just a dream, although at the time we were dreaming, we believed it to be quite real. Only when we awaken do we realize that it was a lower level of reality than wakefulness, and that the waking state is quite superior to dreaming. But our poor mind balks at accepting the possibility that there might be something higher than the waking state. It feels that the state of wakefulness is the highest state of consciousness. Saints, on the other hand, advise us that we can awaken still further and enter into regions of light within if we go in and beyond the entrance at the eye center. They say that when we have had this experience, we will realize that our everyday state of consciousness is as a dream in comparison to the reality which awaits us within. Then the mind will delight in meditation and will readily abandon the gross attractions of this world. All this is very logical, as saints must use logic on our plane. For if the mind is not given experiences which will more fully satisfy its desires, it will never give up its attachment to this world. This is why meditation is the only way out of the labyrinth of this creation. It is through meditation that we will become aware of these higher regions. Therefore, every saint has proclaimed that the kingdom of God is to be found within, through the technique of meditation and under the guidance of a perfectly realized master. It is through contemplation of the world that we become worldly and remain in the creation. Similarly, it will be through inner contemplation of the higher reality that we will eventually leave this creation. Contemplation of the worldly makes us perishable, while contemplation of the divine makes us immortal. With our attention so firmly rooted to the physical creation, saints do not bother pointing out the beauty of this world. We are already too fond of this world as it is, and we hardly need to have our attention called to its beauty. Therefore, saints prefer to wean us away from our morbid fascination with the perishable by discoursing upon the realities of life. By so doing, they help us to see the illusory nature of the world and gradually convince us to give up worldly pursuits. Then, when we seek their guidance, they put us on the path, give us practical instructions on how to leave this world, and serve as our constant spiritual preceptors. They put us in touch with the Spirit within so that we may heed the words of St. Paul in Romans 8:13. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. This Spirit of God, which we come in contact with through meditation, will be the next topic of discussion.